Whoa, what the? Who set the frame rate so low? Ah, much better. Hello filmmakers, Ash here, and welcome to Film It Yourself. When picking a frame rate for your film, you might be surprised to discover that there's a rainbow of choices to choose from. So let's go over the different types of frame rates and why you might choose them for your film. But first, let's go over what a frame rate is. A frame rate is the number of images or frames that make up a second of video. Because video is actually made up of still images played back to back to create the illusion of movement. It's kind of like a magic trick. Second, let's clarify that when it comes to frame rates, you're not only choosing what to shoot in, but also what to edit in. Ultimately, your film will be edited in a sequence set to a specific frame rate. So keep that in mind when choosing what to shoot in. Most of the time, you'll want to match that frame rate, but we'll go over a few exceptions later on. So now, let's go over the rainbow of frame rates you have to choose from. 24 frames per second, or 23.976, is the standard frame rate for films. It gives your footage a cinematic look, and that's because it has smooth motion with a good amount of motion blur. Most of the time, this is the frame rate movies are shot in, and because of that, viewers have become very accustomed to it. Thus why everyone freaked out when The Hobbit decided to shoot in 48 frames per second. Note, however, that different countries have slightly different variations. So if you're in the UK, for example, it might be 25 frames per second for you. Next is 30 frames per second, or 29.97, and this is commonly used for broadcast TV. So, if you're filming a TV show episode or something you want to look more like reality TV, then this might be the frame rate for you. In 30 frames per second, motion looks a bit crisper because you've got a few extra frames. Next up is 60, 120, 180, and up. Now, I'm grouping all of these together because typically these are used to create a slow motion effect. You can think of it this way: the more frames you're shooting, the slower and crisper the motion will get. And there's some extra benefits to this besides just getting a cool shot. Shooting slow-mo can actually help your footage look more stable. So if you're going handheld but don't want a lot of camera shake, this is a good way to make your footage look more steady. You can also shoot 60 frames per second and have it play back at normal speed, and this is actually closer to what your eye perceives in everyday life. However, just note that doing this is going to get you less motion blur, which might not look so cinematic. Now, when shooting high frame rates, you just want to make sure that it's motivated and enhances your story instead of just looking really cool. And this really goes for any frame rate choice. For example, you might want to make an action scene feel more intense by having less motion blur, like in Saving Private Ryan. Or you might want to slow down some action to create more drama, like in The Matrix. So, don't be afraid to experiment with multiple frame rates in one film. Changing your frame rate to highlight different story or character beats can be an effective tool for storytelling. Whatever frame rate you pick, just make sure it's the best choice for the story you're telling. And hey, if you like this video, please consider hitting the like button. Or let me know what frame rate you love to use in the comments below. Spence prefers 24, but I think he looks better at 180.